Now,
Okay. Okay, we're good. Okay, thank you. And with that, I would like to introduce Terry Rizzo. When she was the FDP chair, supported the Pinellas County and helped us with our elections, and we elected quite a few elected officials. Terry's a very dear friend to me, and Terry Rizzo will go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Sharon, and hello, Pinellas DEC. It's so awesome to see all of you here tonight. And I am super excited to introduce to you one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party. For those of you who may not know Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, he is just awesome. And just 3 weeks ago, he was elected as one of the 4 vice chairs for the Democratic National Committee at our officer elections at National Harbor, Maryland, Grand Harbor, Maryland, sorry. He is a state representative for the 181st district in Pennsylvania, the State House district, which for those of you, it's North Philly, for those of you who know that area. He was for
Yeah, we're kind of breaking
must have
up
been
a
among
little
the young
bit.
in 2020, 22, and then of course 24. And I think the last 2 elections were unopposed. Representative Kenyatta, you can tell us that. He is a graduate of Temple University in Philadelphia with a BA in Strategic Communications and a Master's of Science from Drexel University in Philly in Public Communications. Has been an activist and involved in politics since he was 11 years old. He served as the junior block captain for the Philadelphia Streets program at age 11. And in college, he was involved in organizing, as you might imagine, as particularly protests against the proposed cuts to the education budget by then Governor Tom Corbett. In 2023, Representative Kenyatta was appointed by President Biden as chair of the Presidential Advisory Commission on advancing educational equity, excellence, and economic opportunity for Black Americans. He ran in 2024. He was a candidate for the public auditor in Pennsylvania. And just 3 weeks ago, he was elected, as I said, as one of the 4 vice chairs for the Democratic National Committee. In a marathon session, I will tell you, it lasted over 12 hours. And to elect, I think there were over 25 candidates altogether. And Representative Kenyatta emerged victorious, along with Artie Blanco of Nevada, Raina Walters Morgan, who is the vice chair for equity and inclusion from North Carolina, and David Hogg of Florida, and Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, who will be speaking to you shortly. I've already seen him numerous times on TV representing the Democratic Party. He is just awesome. He is a marvelous advocate for the party. And just 3 days after his election, I asked if he would be willing to come on and speak to you all. I couldn't think of anybody better to tell you what's going on with the party. And he immediately said yes and made it happen. So it is truly my pleasure to introduce my friend, Malcolm Kenyatta, who is a friend to all Democrats, and you will just love him. Representative Kenyatta, the floor is yours.
well, thank you. Thank you so much, my dear friend Terry. I just really appreciate you, and thank you for that generous introduction. And, as you all get to know me very, very well, I'm often in my car traveling somewhere across the Commonwealth. So this is a very normal background for me. Okay. So just take it all in, but please do not submit it to Room Rater. I'm sure I will not get high marks for this background, but nevertheless, let me just say thank you. Thank you. There are 1,000 places that you could be on a Monday evening, but here you are with other Democrats, because I have a hunch that you believe in this country, that you believe in our future, and that you understand that we deserve a government that is operating and working as hard as working families do all across Florida and all across our country. You understand that. I've been thinking a lot today, frankly, not just because I'm from Pennsylvania, but thinking a lot about Gettysburg. You know, like with many of our national monuments and parks, the current guy in the White House, an unfortunate neighbor of yours in Florida, I'm sure, has been summarily cutting the park rangers and others whose job it is to walk people around the hollow ground of Gettysburg to be reminded of what happened there. And many of those folks were summarily let go. But I'm also thinking about them because of remarks that I gave there over 4 years ago when I was running for the US Senate. And I said there something that I want to repeat to each and every one of you tonight. Democracy requires something of us. It requires something of us. I said then that it required something of the enslaved folks and abolitionists who gave up everything because they believed in this idea of freedom. It required something of the suffragettes who engaged in hunger strikes and civil disobedience because they believed and they knew that they deserved to participate fully in this democracy as well. And no matter how these folks try to erase history, it required something of the brave folks who showed up at Stonewall, including trans Americans, who they try to take off the website because they understood that who you love, who you are, boy, that shouldn't keep you from being able to fully be treated with dignity, decency, and respect in this country. I think it required something of the folks in organized labor who all across this country, in many different industries, have shown up on picket lines, engaged in collective and mutual aid because they understand that the companies that they work for, they don't get to hoard all the resources as workers provide all the productivity. And we know that it required something of folks who sat at lunch counters, who had to deal with folks using dogs and water hoses, because they understood that in this country, the color of your skin should not limit your opportunities. And so I say all of that to you and rehash some of those remarks because this moment requires something of us. And because it is a reminder that, as the old idiom goes, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And there's a lot of rhyming going on right now. This is not the first time. We have seen people who try to distract us with bigotry and nonsense, try to use the confusion and chaos to consolidate power for themselves. Not the first time. I mean, literally, even the slogan, "Make America Great Again," is not new. And so in this moment, I want you to put your shoulders back a little bit and recognize that as frustrating as it is, as concerning as it is, as tenuous as this moment feels, this is not the first rodeo for Americans who believe in this idea of democracy, who believe in this idea of self-governance, who still believe, like I believe, that in this country, we don't bow to kings. And the Democratic Party is not going to bow to kings. I don't care who puts it on their Instagram page, even if it's the official page of the White House. We're not bowing down. And I will tell you, we're not rolling over either. And I hope that you, like me, are not going to spend the next 4 years somehow walking around with our heads down like, woe is us. We have a country to save. We have work to do. We have elections to win. And Florida actually happens to have 2 critical special elections that we need to win here very soon. So here's what I want to say in this moment. We have to do 3, I think, distinct but interconnected things to respond in this moment with these series of facts laid before us. The first thing we have to do is to litigate. And you've seen under the leadership of our new chair, Ken Martin, he got to work right away, putting the Democratic Party in a position to take a strong litigation approach to the illegality coming out of the Trump White House. And we should not get sick of calling out the actions of this guy who's currently in the White House as illegal. Because people who want to consolidate power, autocrats, dictators, one of the first things they want to do is to wear you down and to accept the things that they're doing as somehow normal, because they do enough of it, throw enough bile into the system, that we are supposed to sort of forget that what they're doing breaks the law. But this is not, I want to be clear, Malcolm's opinion. This is the reality of what he's doing. It's illegal. And so whether it's in North Carolina, where they're trying not to certify the results of a free and fair election for Supreme Court justice there, we've stepped into that lawsuit. We have also begun to engage in other lawsuits where folks are trying to take away the rights for people to vote in states like Pennsylvania and across this country. And so there is a litigation strategy that we're going to have to engage in. And if you all get the news alerts, or maybe you've turned them off because of the chaos in Washington, but if you get some of the news alerts, we've had a level of success from the litigation front. A lot of different plaintiffs found a lot of different cases in a number of different jurisdictions, but it is important that every single one of these illegal actions, that we take them to court and begin that process. The second thing we have to do is mobilize. You all are doing it. You are here tonight. You're engaging, as I know many of you probably have, in town halls and in protests and in other ways of making your voice heard online or in person through phone calls. We have to mobilize people to make people understand. And I want you to understand that when you make a phone call to your legislator, even if they do not answer your call, it matters. It matters right now that the switchboard in Congress has seen almost a 4,000% increase of calls. It matters when people are showing up to their legislative town halls as people are back in their districts and telling them to do your damn job. Now, listen, I'm a legislator, so maybe I'm a little biased in believing that the legislative body, that we are the most important of the three branches of government. But our founders, in their great wisdom, also put the legislative body first. I highlight this to you as a bit of an aside because I watch people who spend time like I have on phones, knocking on doors, doing all this hard work to get elected to Congress. And now they're sitting in Congress like they're seat fillers at the Oscars or something. They just get up, just get down, clap, whatever Donald Trump says. Grow a spine. Grow one. Because I don't understand what your purpose is to be there if you don't believe that it's your job to represent the people who sent you there. And so it matters. It matters. And so I want you to keep at it, that mobilization, showing up in real life. Because right now, as you may have heard, if you saw, whether it's Instagram and Facebook or TikTok or Twitter, all of those folks were sitting behind Donald Trump at the inauguration. You remember this, Dr. King's worst birthday party ever? They were sitting there, and those folks control a lot of the platforms that we engage. And they're not even being shy about the fact that they are utilizing the algorithms to suppress our content online to the extent that they can, and to elevate other content, to create an illusion about where the American people are. But when you show up in person, in real life, to your legislator's office and let them know that you are not pleased about them abdicating their responsibility to stand up for people in their district, I tell you, they will hear you. And when you do, and I saw somebody put in the 5 calls app, when you make those 5 calls and then say, you know what, I'm not going to stop at 5 calls, I'm going to make 5 more calls, it really does make a difference. And the final thing that I want to say is about, we have to win elections. You all understand this. I said it. You have 2 special elections in Florida. We need to do everything we can, even in tough districts, to win those elections, to engage every single way that we can. And we have seen some success. In Iowa, just a week or 2 after that guy got inaugurated again, we had a senator win a special election in Iowa in a district that Trump had won by 23 points. He flipped it by 5 points, I believe it was. So a 28-point swing in just a couple of weeks. And if you've been following the news, people don't like the chaos in Washington. They don't like the fact that eggs are freaking $9. They don't like the fact that this president is walking away from our allies like Ukraine. Today will be 3 years since the illegal, brutal invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. And you have the president of the United States of America calling the guy who has invaded the dictator and sending love letters to the guy who did the invasion. We're not going to allow these people to tell us that up is down, that right is left, and that wrong is right. We're going to call it out. And a part of how we call it out is that we get candidates who understand their neighbors, who understand their neighborhoods and communities, and who go out and win tough elections. But as a part of that election strategy, I want you to be clear on this. Everything that matters is not happening in DC. Hear me on this. I want to repeat it. Everything that matters is not happening in DC. It was not in DC that they gerrymandered congressional maps out of recognition. That happened in your state capital where you live. It is not in DC where school boards are banning books. That happens where your kid goes to school. It's not in DC where they're making it more difficult for people to build affordable housing. That's happening at the meetings, the zoning meetings, or the local, meetings, depending on how you're structured, where you live. And so it is critical that we look local if we want to win national. Where we find ourselves is not as a result of one election. It's as us losing the thread in terms of investing and caring about school board as much as we care about Senate. Treating people who run for county commissioner with the seriousness and the significance that we treat people who are running for Congress. Caring about and respecting the work of people who run for precinct captain the same way we will when you have, 1,000 people run for the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. And that is what you're seeing in this party and with the leadership team and with folks like Terry Rizzo, who are DNC members. An understanding and a recognition that we have to look local and we have to invest in a 57 state and territory strategy. And we are going to do that. But I do want to end by just maybe where I should have led beyond Terry's bio. And I know that on a Democratic call, as I say this, some people wince because of who the guy is in the White House. But I do want to be clear about this. I am not a Democrat because I hate Republicans. I am not a Democrat because I hate Donald Trump. When I got registered as a Democrat, the only thing Donald Trump was to me was the guy who had a cameo in Home Alone, okay? That's all he was to me when I became a Democrat. I'm a Democrat because I grew up in a working poor family in North Philadelphia, as Terry mentioned. My dad was a social worker. My mom was a home health aide for most of her career. I lost both of my parents by the time I was 27. They both died because they didn't have access to the type of health care that everybody deserved. I lived 5 or 6 different places by the time I graduated high school because we couldn't always afford the bills. I know what it meant to knock on your neighbor's door the way we used to, asking for butter or eggs, okay? Maybe that's a bygone era for some folks, but that was the thing we had to do. The Democratic Party is the last best hope for working families like mine. People who get up every single day, work their hearts out, work their hands to the bone. People who know what it means to sit on the couch and to do that big flop because you're tired, because your feet hurt, because your hands hurt. People who understand what it means to not just get your wealth from unrealized capital gains, but people who have to show up to work. Those folks need a Democratic Party that is going to fight for them every single day. And so I am proud of what you are doing. I am grateful that you are here. And if we are going to build this party, we have to be all about addition. We have to welcome people into this party that didn't vote in the last election, even if that frustrates you a little bit. We have to welcome people who might have been Trump 3-time voters, but now are watching food safety inspectors get fired, watching nuclear scientists get let go, watching people who operate our national parks not be able to go to the jobs that they love, and are waking up and saying, I can't be a part of what is happening in DC anymore, and I need to go in a different direction. We have to welcome them. And as a Democratic Party, we are going to welcome them. And then we're going to win elections, and we're going to get to the hard work of making sure that this party is the party that stands up unequivocally, unabashedly for working people and working families. But hear me on this, Democrats. Hear me on this. We will not do it by fighting each other. One of the things that the people want to do when they want to tear stuff up and gain power is they want the opposition fighting each other. We don't have time to fight each other. There is a show called Silo that I think is on HBO. Now, some of you may watch Silo. I don't watch Silo. My husband watches Silo, and I'm forced to listen to Silo because he plays it in the living room. Now, that show was playing the other day, and I watched one of the main characters say something that I've been thinking about a lot. The character said, we have to figure out how to be angry with each other and not at each other. We have to figure out how to be angry with each other and not at each other. This moment requires all of us to do something and for everybody to do the something that they can do. Let's do it together. Let's litigate. Let's mobilize. Let's win tough elections. And if we do that, we will reclaim this country. We will rebuild this party. And we will make sure that the next chapter of this country is bright as it can be. So God bless you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And thank you so much for this incredibly generous invitation.
Thank you very much, Representative. There's some questions that people are saying in the chat. Would you mind if we answer ask you some questions?
So I can answer one, and then I actually have to go in. We here in Doylestown, here in Pennsylvania, in a swing county, we got another Democrat being sworn into a local borough position. As I mentioned, we got to do the local. But why don't you, Madam Chair, if there are two that you want to read, and I'll respond to them in one summary and use that as my closing. That work?
That will work. Okay. Go ahead and do it.
Do I need to unmute?
Yes.
No.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is from Peter Bayer. And he says, thank you for your inspirational presentation. He feels that his question is a bit pessimistic. What do you say to those who feel your ideas apply to a time when the Constitution applied? Trump was elected promising to use violence against protesters. It is expected he will invoke the Insurrection Act if it pleases him, and then he will not obey major court orders that go against him. Plus, Congress seems to support him, and he seems to control the military. Is he basically a dictator?
And give me the second one at the same time, Sarah, if you don't mind. I'll respond to both. That's okay. Sarah,
This other thing is black. It was about.
What is the strategy to fight misinformation?
What is the strategy on misinformation? Okay, I heard you.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much. And I don't know who asked the second question, but I'll start there, and Peter, I'll close out with yours. On misinformation and disinformation, we have to hold two thoughts at the same time. I mentioned the fact that I hear a lot that, Democrats have we don't have a good message or whatever the case may be. A part of it is Democrats are operating in an ecosystem, a media ecosystem, where, let me give you this example. You can write a beautiful letter, but if your post person doesn't want to deliver your letter, then people aren't hearing it and reaching it. And so when we know that people don't want to deliver our letter, right? Literally, it's not Malcolm's opinion, but the other day we saw reporting, I believe it was NPR, that Elon Musk was taking down or pushing down posts of people criticizing him in Doge on Twitter. Okay, and Twitter is an important information platform. The free speech absolutist turns out doesn't actually believe in free speech absolution, but these people lie. So all that being said, we have to engage everywhere on every platform, and even platforms like that are full of nonsense. And I will tell you, some of the things that are said about me are not kind. Okay, I don't drink anymore, but some of the comments, if I didn't have a thick skin, would lead me to drink. Okay. And so I think that we have to understand that getting the most retweets on something doesn't mean people aren't seeing it. And that when you put something out and other people are putting something out, even when they try to tilt the scales in a certain way, we should recognize that the bots and other things in many instances are not real people. And so sometimes it can be deflating when you get, a rush of people responding with the same little message. But we're seeing it in the polls. We're seeing it with people who are showing up to things in real life. We're seeing it with the incredible turnout on this meeting today, that people are engaged and organized. And so we have to take our message about being a party that works for working people and working families, every platform that we can take it, utilizing new platforms like Blue Sky and everything else, making sure that we lift up voices on the podcast and all the different platforms. But we also have to think proactively about things that aren't huge platforms right now, but that are gaining steam. I will tell you, my godson, who is 7, is spending a lot more time in his virtual reality meta hangout goggles than I would like. We need to start considering, how do we engage in the VR space? How do we engage with people wherever they are? But I also think that we have to prioritize engaging with people in person. There is an epidemic of loneliness in this country. And a part of the way I think we rebuild this country and rebuild this party is by engaging with people in the normal ways that you would engage. If you like to go bowling, go bowling. Talk to somebody who's in the other lane. Invite them to the next meeting. If you are a person of faith like I am, go to church. Talk to the people in the pew. Talk to them on the way out. A part of what this guy wants to do is to get you to be afraid of your neighbors. And yeah, are there some jerks? Absolutely. But you know what? There are a lot of Americans who are just as frustrated as we are about eggs being $9. And I'm not letting that go. I paid for a dozen eggs of $9 today. I'm very upset about it. And so I'm mentioning it to everywhere I go. So we really should do that. People don't know, and there's great research on this, people don't always know what to trust, but people do know who they trust. And who they trust are the people within their in real life social circles, and we have to engage. But we also have to flood the zone as much as we can. You'll see the Democratic Party every single day is putting out, what have Democrats done today? We're putting it out every single day. I want you to share that post. Make sure people see it. Push it out. That's one of the ways that we can combat misinformation, by telling the truth. And my faith teaches me, don't get weary in well-doing. We have to tell the truth. That's the only way you combat lies. And you tell the truth over and over and over again. We have to tell the truth with the same consistency and ferocity that they want to lie. And I know that, as my aunties would say, that a lot of times a lie will get halfway around the block while the truth is putting its shoes on. But the truth still needs to put its shoes on. And it needs to get out there and run the race. And so we have to do that work. Peter, on your question, I want to say this to you. Your fear, your anger, your anxiety is real. It's warranted. So I do not want to say to you, hey, don't you feel the way you feel? But I also want to say to you that the way that you feel is a part of their strategy. And when somebody tells you their strategy, I think it's incumbent on you to do something in the opposite of their strategy. Now, I might not make any friends by mentioning the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the Super Bowl champions, and listen, I don't pander, okay? I don't pander. If I got to see, and if you got to see what the strategy was of the other team, and they told you they're going to blitz on this play, you might want to have a play where you're ready for that pressure that's going to come from the blitz. What they're trying to do right now is blitz you. They're trying to get you so terrified, so frustrated, and to tell you that Donald Trump's not going to obey the courts. We don't know that. We don't know that. And we cannot get in a position where we obey in advance. We cannot get in a position where we say all hope is lost. We have to deal with these things one time, one thing at a time. And the courts do have multiple ways that they can enforce their rulings that are financial, that are punitive in other ways. And I think that, so far, we've seen the Supreme Court, at least in one ruling so far, not side with Donald Trump, but side with the independent inspectors general and say that they get to keep their jobs for now. And we need to take these things one at a time. The other thing that we have to do is, yes, he is getting rid of the leadership of the military. But many of you, like me, have members of our family who serve in the military. My best friend in the world is Lieutenant Colonel Tristan Monroe, who has served in uniform with dignity and distinction. And those folks who have raised their hands, taken that oath, taken their commission, I know that many of them remember their oaths. And we need to also trust that people remember their oaths and don't allow people's nonsense and mass firings to allow you to lose faith in people who are in law enforcement. They're trying to get people out of the military and out of law enforcement because, by and large, a lot of people are doing the right thing. They get into these roles not to make a lot of money, but because they believe in these values, and they believe in them so much that they are willing to put their bodies and their lives on the line, to leave their families behind, to go do tours of duty because they believe in our values. And so we ought to believe that even in this moment, that many of our systems can and will hold, and that litigating, mobilizing, and winning elections is still a critical strategy for us moving forward. So I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. I cannot wait to meet many of you in person. As my friend Terry knows, I will come to Florida in a minute. My brother still lives in Hollywood, Florida, okay? And so I look forward to being down, as soon as I can. But God bless you. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm going to run in to see another Democrat sworn into office. And let's hopefully we see more of that all across the country, okay? Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.